Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. 7 days on, Hibs still don't have a new head coach. I'm with Liam and I am with the returning Harry. Harry, you're fresh off a trip with your better half. How was it?
Yeah, no, mate, it was amazing. I literally about double the weight of myself in Pinchos. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced the small plates that they do there and the small beers that they do in San Sebastian and Bilbao. But absolutely incredible place. And yeah, I've got the holiday blues still, but we're bouncing back. I'm sure the new Hibs manager when he comes in, will give me that lift.
It's a bank holiday down where you are at least. I don't know if it's a bank holiday in Scotland. I was certainly working today, unfortunately. You had some good personal news today. Would you be wanting to share that with the listeners? Some progress?
I don't know if I'd categorize it as news, but yeah, ran a half marathon for the first time, which is absolutely mental from my perspective. Like literally less than 5 weeks ago, I struggled to do a 5K and then literally got to about 15K today. I thought, let's just do an R6 and see how we go. So I'm a bit knackered, but we're rocking and rolling, mate.
Liam, how you doing, mate? Anything like that?
Mm.
Any running today?
Nah, the wee one's had chicken pox the last 5 days, so I've been on
Oh.
like the opposite half marathon. It's been like home isolation almost the last 5 days. I did make out to the gym this morning, but there was no half marathons completed. I must admit, and I wasn't doing anything that strenuous. Sticking to the good old weights.
Well, Harry's outnumbered 2-1 here because I certainly didn't fucking run a half marathon, nor have I ever run a half marathon, I don't think. I did, I was playing football yesterday though, so that's something. Harry, there is no football for us to really get our teeth into just now, but you haven't had the opportunity to give us your take on the sort of next Hibs appointment and what you would like to see. Where are you at with it, and is there any names that are being bandied about that would get the juices flowing for you?
It's a tricky one because like just with the volume of managers that we've had over the last few years, and I did get excited at the time for all of them. And even though Lee Johnson was a bit underwhelming because we got to speak to him, I was a bit like, oh, he seems fun. Then we saw how that turned out. So for me, I don't really have. I like Ronnie Dyler. I like that show. I don't know how realistic it is. And David Gray, you guys have kind of talked me around there, but yeah, I just don't want some boring guy from down south that's got like 400 games under his belt because I just think that'd be really stale. And I've seen Beale floated about, and that'd just be horrific. So let's avoid that, and I think I'll be happy.
Liam, someone I think we did mention last week has floated into sort of 6-4 according to McBookie today. Ian Murray, obviously off the back of a disappointing result, I would think for Raith Rovers, obviously over the two legs, although they still had a very good season. Is that someone that you'd be happy to see at Easter Road, or
I wouldn't be against it. Like I'd be probably quite content with Ian Murray. I think his record generally, certainly at Dumbarton, Airdrie, and Rafe is really good. I think the thing that people would struggle with that is he's maybe not the kind of big name, sort of sexy appointment that you're looking for with the Black Knights investment involved there. But I think if you were to get the right structure in around him, it's definitely one that could work. The elephant in the room is obviously the job he did at St Mirren, but I think they were a bit of a basket case at that time, and I think you're allowed one bad job on your CV,
yeah.
particularly when the club's been a basket case, to go into and not do so well. I think his Raith team play quite good football. I think it's a pity actually in the first leg against Ross County they didn't really show an awful lot of that good football until the sort of dying embers of the game.
Yep.
But they do generally get it down and play quite good football. So I think from that point of view, I think Hibs fans could get on board with it. But I recognise it's not maybe the most exciting name.
It's a difficult one as well, though, when you're in that position that Raith Rovers were in. Like, they are playing a Premiership side that ultimately beat Rangers like a month ago. Like, they are, Raith Rovers are playing against lesser opposition. So I would like to think that when Ian Murray, if he was to step up into the Hibs role, he would be able to translate that style of play against the top flight teams as well. Like, I don't think it would be a game that you should be judging them on over the two legs. But for me, it's still David Gray. I'm not seeing anyone out there that is really, I would want to. I'm waiting for someone to, be linked or to be put into the bet in or anything like that that makes me go, yeah, no, that moves me off David Gray. But for all the emotional reasons and these coaching experience now and everything else that I mentioned last week, I think I am still with David Gray. In terms of timelines, we spoke last week about wanting a manager and soon, Liam. We're 7 days down the line now. there's no really any chat to suggest we're any closer to an appointment. Is that a worry at all?
Um, I don't think it's quite got to the worrying stage just yet. I think the fact that our new sporting director doesn't start until the 1st of June probably indicates that the appointment will be after that date, to be honest. I think you would want, from an optics point of view, even if he's doing work just now, for that appointment to come after. So I think we'll probably see something next week, in all honesty. I think sort of middle of next week, I would imagine we'll have someone enroll, and then the job will start. And the advantage that David Gray has is he doesn't need to go about assessing that squad. He doesn't need to see all those players play, seeing them perform, or in some cases not perform, over the last number of years. So he's got that sort of, he's going in with his eyes wide open. I suppose that's the other advantage that someone else within Scottish football would have as well, is they'll have already probably made an assessment based on seeing most of that first team play at some point. But I do think it will be interesting to see, if it is David Gray, how ruthless he can be, given that he's got that sort of full picture of the squad going into it.
Yeah. Harry, do you have any sort of final thoughts just now on any candidates or timelines, anything other than what's already been mentioned?
Nah, I think in the modern day, when it comes to managers, they're less involved than they used to be when it comes to transfers. So as long as they're in for the start of pre-season, I don't really have any issue with it. If it got to mid-July and we didn't have a manager in, I'd be very concerned. But the fact that we're still not quite hit June, I think we're all right.
Just so we're correct on terminology, it means head coaches
Head
are
coach,
not as
sorry,
informed
sorry.
in transfer activity, because managers generally do still look after transfer activity. Because
Fuck's sake.
someone will reply saying,
Yeah, call me Specky idiot, and I agree with him. So yeah.
Well, now's probably the right time to say that this will be our last recording until Hibs have a new head coach, not manager, in place. But that could be next week, it could be 2, 3 weeks' time. But we're not going to just fill your ears with even more nonsense. But what are we here for tonight? The main event is a transfer episode. What we enjoy doing, what football fans enjoy doing, speculating all summer to only be left disappointed come the first weekend of September. A couple of weeks ago, we looked at defenders. Harry got really angry because it just got him so emotional about left-sided centre backs, and we looked at goalkeepers. So that leaves us with the good stuff, the business end of the park, midfielders and forwards. Tonight we have all been tasked with bringing along a sort of defensive midfielder, your more box-to-box advanced midfielder, and a forward option, be that a centre forward, someone that can play across the front line or whatever, however we all interpret it. Harry, you can have the honour. Start us off with your deeper lying midfielder, please. Your number 6, if you will.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that my ideal person in the six role is someone who can do the role of Jimmy Jeggle, but can actually pass a football competently and is just a bit more consistent in their defensive actions. So I think I've went a bit far and wide, more so than I normally do. But I've found a Ghanaian midfielder called Edmund Ado, who currently plays for Slovakian side Radniki, and is an absolute ball of pace, runs about the pitch like a madman, and he gets himself proper stuck in. Technically, not the best player. However, he is good at getting the ball out his feet to people that are actually good at football, and he's just good at kind of being that destroyer role. I think he'd be a fun addition to the team.
Right, Liam, it's time to grill him. I've got a question in mind already. Do you have anything?
I mean, I think my immediate thought is he's joined Serbian side Spartak Subotica on loan, signing a contract until June 2025 with the club, but also seems to be owned by Red Star Belgrade, and he's a 10 cap Ghanaian international. My question would be is how gettable is Edmund Ado?
So see when you guys give me briefs, we have to be very specific. If gettable is the whole in my head, in all seriousness, I think he's relatively similar to what Giando Fuchs is. But obviously Giando Fuchs is a bit more accomplished on the ball. But yeah, in terms of how achievable he is, I've kind of looked at my three signings as someone that I'd go for on Football Manager, which is obviously not a very sensible barometer. So being honestly, I can't answer that question.
Well, my question is, Harry, it's essential that your manager candidate has experience in Scottish football. This guy hasn't he ever kicked a football in Scotland, in England, in Wales, in Ireland? Is it just transferable, or would you not be wanting a little bit more experience on
Well,
these
he,
shores?
he has actually played 6 times in the Champions League, Ewan, so I think that is a
Oh,
pretty
nice.
decent
That's
standard.
fine then.
He used to be a Moldovan club, Sheriff Tiraspol, who I believe once beat Real Madrid. He might have actually been part of that side in
He
2021.
was, and he was certainly at the club when it
Aye.
happened. Whether he was in the team or not, I don't know.
So
Fuck
there
me
you
then.
go.
He, he seems to really like the Balkan states. So he's played in Slovakia, Moldova, Serbia, uh, Serbia again, and then where does Radnicia from Serbia as well?
I
God, he
think there's,
really
are they not
likes them.
Slovakia?
Sitting on a Serbian
Oh,
apparently, mate.
Serbian. Sorry, I thought it was Slovakia.
Radnici, Nice. So he does seem to like the Balkan states. I mean, maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the climate that he likes so much. And Scotland, in terms of climate, probably not a million miles away. So maybe we could tempt him.
Liam, where are you taking us for our deep flying midfield player?
Nowhere as exotic as Serbia. Nowhere as exotic as Serbia, but still a wee bit more exotic. I've gone a wee bit out of the box with this one as well. I was going to go really safe for this one, but I've done a bit more digging and I've used a wee tool that Harry pointed me in the direction of earlier on today, and I'm going with 26-year-old Dutch midfielder Mies Hodemakers, who plays for NEC Nijmegen in the Eredivisie. He's a holding midfield player, 26 years of age, as I said. Pretty much never present for Nijmegen this season. Um, I mean, he has played quite a lot of football for a 26-year-old. Started off at AZ Alkmaar and played for Cambuur as well in the Netherlands. And he's a guy who plays football. He doesn't miss games.
Mm.
He looks to me to be, from the wee bits of pieces of I managed to see, as a fairly complete looking number 6, quite mobile, and can certainly pass a ball. So I think ticks a lot of boxes.
Is a player that you've said on record on here, maybe a couple of weeks ago, in fact, it was when we were doing the sort of bench keep sell. Luke Amos, he's obviously a year older than him. As right now, you'd think maybe would be the starting number 6. Is it the sort of durability as much as anything else that you think would give this guy the advantage over Amos, or do you see that they could work together?
I mean, we've had such success signing players from the Eredivisie, Dylan Vente, Edwin de Graaf, do I need to go on? And I mean, all to say is that I think Vente will come good. I think with this guy, I think availability, yes, definitely a key factor. I think the number of games he's played is quite experienced for a 26-year-old. The Eredivisie is quite a good level, technically good. To Harry's point, we need someone who's technically better than who we've had in there of late. And with Amos, I would love it to work out, and I'm still got really high hopes for Luke Amos at Hibs, but the availability issue is clearly a worry given his track record prior to signing for us.
And just with the age that you said for this player, you guys in agreement that we need a few extra like prime age players? Because I think that he probably falls into that bracket of, I'd probably say maybe like 26 to 31 is where you would expect players to have their peak. So
Yeah.
I don't have a clue about the Eredivisie at the moment. You've sold him to me. So what was his name?
Mies, MWS, Hodemakers, Hodemakers. I'll share it out the tweet.
A club shop's nightmare. That's what that is.
Well, it's a fucking dream because there's enough letters in the surname to
That's true.
pound a letter. You're laughing.
That's true. Well, I've went even less exotic. I've went to the sunny climate of Yorkshire, for a Welshman who is 30 years old, has previously played in Scotland, and is a full international, and that is Will Vaulks, formerly of Falkirk. Currently 30 years old. And I sort of went down a similar route with what Liam's saying there, and with what you said there, Harry. So that's sort of prime age, but also we had a lot of injuries in the team this season and probably in the last couple of seasons. So since Will Vaulks broke into the team at Falkirk when he did, the lowest amount of games he's actually played in a season is 34. He's never really had any major injury issues. He's obviously played multiple times for Wales, and has had a really solid career in England over 3 sides at Rotherham initially with Alan Stubbs, at Cardiff, and then at Sheffield Wednesday. Over 200 Championship games and over 100 League One games. He's a free agent this summer. And so, some of the statistics as well to sort of couple with that sort of knowledge, if you like, of obviously seeing him sort of firsthand in his younger days, he's still excelled in the Championship, and some stats that I can give you if you were to be so interested, but I know neither of you are that big on them.
No, I'm not completely against it. My worry with someone like Will Vaulks is I don't think he was particularly mobile when he played up here, and he's obviously now got a few more miles on the clock than he was when he played up here. I wonder if he's mobile enough to be able to do that position. That he's not old by any stretch of imagination, but is he going to be mobile enough to play that position as a sort of lone six?
I
Because I
think,
think when he plays with Sheffield Wednesday, they'd have someone like Barry Bannon and next to him. So you've got two sitters. Bannon's the sort of ball player, and Will Vaulks is the sort of find and
yeah,
destroy kind of guy.
I think he would be fit. I think he's certainly not. That's not my recollection of him, but maybe that's incorrect. You know, personally thought he was still capable of sort of getting up and down at the time, and I think he scored a couple of screamers. And athleticism certainly wasn't an issue because I remember he used to do a backflip or a front flip as his celebration. So he's certainly got athleticism in there. But whether that's translates to going side to side like you say, Liam, I'm not sure. But maybe that is good for some of the stats though, just in terms of that what could he operate in that role? So in the Championship this season, he was still one of the best performing midfielders for duels won, aerial duels won, where are we? And his recoveries as well and tackles won. He was sort of ranking in the sort of top 10 to 15% in the league for defensive midfielders. But also for chances created, accurate long balls, expected assists and successful crosses. He was in the top sort of few percentile in that role as well. But it was a massive thing for me was looking for someone with the experience and sort of that evidence of work of being robust enough to get through a season. You know, like that. I think that's a big thing for us. We've had Joe Newell that we can sort of hang our hat on in that position, and then it's sort of been a merry-go-round of whoever's fit over the last couple of years to play beside him. And whereas someone like Volks has managed the sort of demands of the English League One and the Championship when it is a little bit more Saturday, Tuesday, as they like to tell you all the time. I think that is a real selling point for a player. Shall we move on to somewhere a little bit more glamorous?
Just on
one question, sorry for myself. Just for the younger viewers who are and listeners who haven't like maybe seen him play when he was at Falkirk, is there a player that you would compare him to that just to give them a rough idea?
Oh, look, when he was the deeper line, but he played with Blair Alston a lot and Craig Sibbald in that sort of midfield, and I didn't see him as too much dissimilar to like almost Joe Newell, but probably a little bit more defensively sound than what Joe Newell is, and maybe does just lack that little bit more in the final third that maybe Joe Newell can be a little bit more finessed in. But I actually would envisage, I know we're talking about him as a number six, but if you were to play like a 4-2-3-1 for argument's sake, and you were to line up with Volks and Newell as your two, I think that's a good, athletic, robust midfield that you could then either supplement that with a more advanced midfielder in a number 10 role, or in a different game, maybe drop Volks back into that sort of more six on his own with another midfielder beside Newell. I actually don't see him as too much of a different type of player to him.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely loves a yellow card. He's managed
10, I
to
think.
10 yellow cards this season, having only played 57% of his team's minutes. So that's, I mean, he's averaging basically a card probably every, 1.5 games, something like that, 1.5 full games. That's Joe
good.
Newell losing his place at the top of the booking charts with that one.
It's it would certainly make the build a bits a little bit more difficult on who to pick on a Saturday morning, that's for sure. Yeah, let's move on to something a little bit more glamorous then. Harry, I know you have scoured the internet and on the continent to over the last couple of days to source your players. Who have you got for your more number 8, number 10 style midfielder?
So this player can actually play anywhere in the three positions. And if you're a big football manager guy, this guy was a massive deal back in like I think it was 2017. His name is Filippo Melogoni. He is Italian, plays for Genoa. He was out on loan at Reggiana, who are a Serie B team this year. And essentially, he's the type of player that you just call gravy. He's incredibly slick with his feet, knows how to find a pass. He's good defensively, but he isn't like the most physical of players, so he won't get himself stuck in, but he will like help out defensively and kind of chip in that way. Got a good work rate, so you'll see him up and down the pitch the whole game. And yeah, it's like think Scott Allen, but a bit more box to box. So yeah, I'm a big fan of him, and he's actually a player that I've had in Football Manager, and he was banging for me on that. So if he was to replicate that in real life, it'd be great. The only concern is in terms of volumes of games of late. He's not played too many last year. He just had 9 starts for Reggiano. However, he did get 27 under his belt when he was on loan at Standard Liège the year before. So I don't know if that was an injury concern. I couldn't find any articles saying so, but I think he'd be a very fun player. And just to confirm, he's out of contract in the summer. I don't know if
hasn't signed on loan for anyone. You know, he's not done it. He's not already snapped up. He's ready and available. So, do you think he would come in then and play? Let's look at last season. Is he Marcondes? You know, is he that, or is he a more, I'll say, Jonio? You know, like
I would say he would be the Joe Newell that we want Joe Newell to be. I think that he wouldn't be his first shout wouldn't be to help out defensively. It would be he would kind of be the conductor. So you'd get him on the ball and he'd move it probably a bit deeper than Marcondes does. So he'd be the focal point from the midfield. But he does kind of have. I don't think there's really a player at the club at the moment because Joe Newell, we always scream out for. I want to see him carry the ball forward and actually get be everywhere. I think he's kind of that player that could do that. So further, more back-to-back, box-to-box, version of Joe Newell, I would say.
Yeah, I like his profile. 6'2" though. I wasn't. When you described him as a football player, I wasn't expecting him to be 6'2". Incredible.
Good feet for a big lad.
Good feet for a big man. An absolutely incredible thing about him as well. He's played 57 times for Italy under 17s and Italy under 19s. So he obviously was like basically playing every single available fixture for them, probably a year ahead of time. He's mentioned quite a lot in Italian articles alongside, is it Alessandro Bastoni? You know, or is it Alessio Bastoni, the Inter Milan centre back? The boy that's absolutely top drawer. Sort of plays wide centre back for Inter Milan. I think he looks. And just based on a quick look at him, his profile looks brilliant. But I mean, he's another one of these ones where you would be going. Genoa, I think, finished sort of mid-table in Serie A this season. Like, would the expectation for him be that he goes and plays, you know, for maybe another club lower down the pecking order? But if you could get him, he would be. He looks like exactly the sort of profile of player that would be quite exciting.
To sum up in one is a former wonder kid who's not met his ceiling. And he's the type of player that if you did sign him, he could potentially become very, very good very, very quickly, but he's untapped.
So Islam Farouz on one arm, and who's the other one that we've had that was a wonder kid? I mean, I suppose Scott Allen.
Mizzy Malida, that's who I'll compare him to.
Malida, brilliant, perfect, much better.
Do you know, I was just thinking there. So I take on board what you were saying there, Liam, about the league position, but he was on loan at a team that finished in the middle of Serie B. So, like, what is the demand on that level of player? You know, like that. It would be an interesting one. But do you know what Harry's described to me there? Melker Hallberg levels of excitement. When did we last have someone coming for the continent that you were like they were a decent age? You know, they had a
Dylan
decent
Venti.
A midfielder.
Okay.
Like, last season, Dylan Venti.
Like a little, just like, you know, like a little bit more intrigued because like with goal scorers, you very much look at it and go, he's scored goals or he hasn't scored goals. Whereas midfielders, I always feel there's a little bit more mystique around them when like they're signing and that because you don't really know too much about them. Whereas, you know, like Dylan Venti, you could go and watch a YouTube goals compilation and be like, oh fuck, he knows where the net is. Like, so you sort of understand what you're signing quicker. It would be an interesting one. It just made me think back. I remember, was it the early League Cup game or something? I think, like the first knockout round when Hallberg was kicking around in and around. He was seen at Easter Road and stuff, and it was like, oh, who is this guy that's been knocking around? So that's Harry, you've signed me up. See, when we do a wrap up here, I think we might already know who our midfielder is. Liam, are you taking us off to Italy as well, or?
No. I've got someone who's a well-known name for my number 8, and I actually think I mentioned him on the very first episode we did of this nature going back to the beginning, we had our first summer and we sat down and said, here's a player I'd like us to sign. At that point, he was attainable because he was at Motherwell or his contract was expiring. He was then mentioned again later on, and he very much was not attainable because he's just been his the player of the year for the club he played for, which finished at the top end of the championship. But given he's had a pretty bad loan spell, I think he might have suddenly become attainable again, and he might not see his future with his current club, and that is Luton Town's Alan Campbell. So I think everything you read and hear about Alan Campbell is very much along the lines of he is a consummate professional, like guy that just absolutely lives and breathes the game, trains hard, plays hard. He is the player you see on the pitch. You know, he lives that life off the pitch. He's had a bit of a shocker at a loan spell at Millwall, and not in all truth, things just have not worked out for him there. He is the sort of profile I think under sort of George Craig and Graham Matthew, the player we were going after, kind of Scottish player who'd maybe gone down south, hadn't quite kind of worked out for him. Time to bring him home. Bring him home, some good Scottish comforts, some iron brew, you know, whatever else he is that he's missing down there in Bermondsey. And believe you me, I've spent time in Bermondsey. There's probably quite a lot that you'd be missing that's up here. Just get him home, get him back to Scotland, and a midfield they can thrive in. Probably, to be honest, make him the highest paid player at the club because I think he would, quite frankly, as a known quantity, he would be the best player at Hibs if he signed. Get him in.
Do you know, like before we grill Liam on this one, Harry, because I know that you'll have nothing but glowing things to say. Can we all just think back to the single best line that's ever been said on this podcast from Harry, where he went, "What the hell is even a Luton town?" And then within 2 years, he's played like almost 100 games for them, won Player of the Year, got promoted with them. Do you still think it was an absolutely ridiculous move?
But, like people get lucky. Like that's I'm fully happy to admit that people get lucky. I think that going to Luton Town when they were in League One at the time, I believe, instead of coming to Hibs, who are
Signed for him
still
when
The
they'd been promoted to
championship.
Championship.
Yeah, the
just promoted,
championship.
but Hibs still a significantly bigger club. I know he's got more money making that move, but I don't think that he had the expectation. So I don't regret saying that at all. I think what is a Luton Town, it still stands. And you know what I say is sometimes I'm not wrong. I'm just early, and who knows how far Luton will fall. So yeah. But just to actually give fault, I think Campbell's brilliant. I think he's like literally everything you could possibly want in a midfielder. He's strong, combative, but he's really neat on the ball, and he can score goals as well. He done that at Motherwell in his last season. So I think he's literally, for Scottish football, I think that's probably the best, like highest caliber of player we could probably sign realistically as the like of an Alan Campbell. So if we somehow made that happen, I'd be very, very happy.
Yeah,
He's a really good example of don't judge a player by his stats, because I went to go and drill in down on his per 90s and there was not much that is a green metric for him for last season. Like, as much as he did have a bad loan spell at Millwall, actually the underlying numbers are not good either. But I think we all know the kind of player that he is when he was up here. And I think he's got a bit of versatility as well. I mean, you'd probably want to use him as an 8 for his energy, getting up and down, but he could do a job in the 6, I think, for you, if he did. And he, maybe not, I think if you were to say he's got a weakness, he's probably not your kind of thread the ball through of an eye of a needle type passer. He's maybe not the best, wouldn't be the best passer that we'd have in the centre of midfield. So maybe there's a bit of conflict there with Mariah Welsh, just in terms of the style. If you were going to play both of them, I'm not sure how that would work. But certainly he would be a player that would get people excited, and I think we'd be a bit of a marquee signing, to be honest, for the summer.
Aye. Yeah, there's not really anything to sort of critique on that one. I think people's worry would maybe be looking at what he's done last season, but these players, to become attainable, need to have that. You know, like you were saying earlier with the black mark on the manager, like players can have that as well. And it would be interesting, I think, from his point of view. Is he ready to? Because you could look at two ways. Does he want to try England one more time, or is it come back to Scotland, get regular games, maybe try and push for a Scotland squad or something? You know, if you come, because I think if you come at Hibs and you play regularly, then that's the sort of thing you could probably look to do. Maybe even a loan could be an option. I know it wouldn't be ideal for us, but it feels like to me still under contract. You know,
You'd want an option to buy. I think you'd want an option to buy on that, and I say that because I think if he was to come here and really tear it up next season, I think, albeit they didn't go for him last time, I think Rangers or Celtic could sniff about, given that he's still 25 years of age. There's still room for growth. He's still coming into his prime years. But I'd be a player, however you get him, just get him.
Yeah. Right. I have been talked into doing the one that I wasn't gonna do. Listeners will be like, "You're shut the fuck up. Like, you've done it in the summer, you've done it in January. My number 8, I'm sticking with it. Harry, not only am I right, I was fucking early as well. Luke McKeown is who Hibs need to sign to play the number 8 next season, in my opinion. Excellent season for Dundee. Visually, very good. I think he played well both times at Easter Road, scored a good goal. Scores a number of good goals, to be fair. Option from a set piece, scored a lovely free kick against Hearts early this season. And a player that maybe even in January, when we were talking about it, you're thinking it's only been half a season. He was, he's in the Championship. He's never really played at this level up to the age he was at already. And you've all seen it when players go on a hot streak, but I think Luke McKeown's game developed and grew as the season went on with Dundee. He has a very good midfield partner, to be fair to them, and Lyle Cameron as well. But I think Luke McKeown is the man at Dundee, and I think he would be a very, very good addition to Hibs. Hibs' midfield. He is pretty much off the charts statistically for a lot of things you would want in a midfielder, and some of the things that you probably on the face of it maybe wouldn't associate him with. I think we would all expect him to do well on front foot metrics, but defensive wise, and he stacks up well compared to anyone.
I don't think we'd sign him for his defensive capabilities. I think my view on him, I think he's a player that demands the ball a lot, and I like that in the position that he plays. I think that when he's almost a leader on the pitch, and he's really good at just essentially driving the team forward and trying to get everybody playing. So yeah, and he's good at set pieces, isn't he?
Yeah, well. I mean, what do you define good at set pieces?
As in, like he takes corners and you don't sigh every time he takes
scored a free kick this season.
Yeah.
Just to sort of touch on what I've meant defensively there. So and this is just compared to other central midfielders in the top flight this season. So top 5% for interceptions. He was the top midfielder for recoveries in the league and the top midfielder for winning possession back in the final third. He's combative in the sense that he ranks high in tackles and duels won, however, quite low in the percentage of them won. So he goes in for a lot of tackles and a lot of headers and stuff, but he doesn't always win them. And he does rank highly in fouls committed, which is starting to become a little bit of a trend with what I seem to want in my midfielders. Love Joe Newell, want us to sign Will Vaulks and Luke McKeown, but it's even with what you were saying there about Mariah Welsh and Campbell, like I think my beliefs around what works as a central midfielder in this country is probably quite aligned to Liam's as well. Like, I think you need to be able to shift, you need to be able to put a graft in, and you need to have a bit of quality. And I think, like, you're talking about how would an Alan Campbell work with Mariah, but just if you can just put all day types of players into a midfield in this country, you will do well, as long as you do have that little bit of sprinkling of quality, which I think Luke McKeown has.
Do you know who? I mean, there's a player at the club already who is like him, who I would argue is probably not quite as effective a player as he is. But he's obviously matured and he's changed his game. So I know he played out wide for a period for Dundee, and when he was at Ayr United, certainly Pallet Work Sports Ayr United said that he generally played as a 10 or just off the striker. So he's obviously moved around. He's quite versatile. And in some respects, his style and the fact that he plays those multiple positions and the fact that his goal scoring record for Matteo is exceptional. Like, I mean, of all the things I'd sign him for, I think it's the fact that he contributes consistently, sort of 8+ goals a season. There is a bit of Josh Campbell about him in terms of what he brings and what he would bring. And to be honest, signing a player like that would give us what Campbell gives us, but maybe just on a slightly more, potentially, not saying it would definitely, but potentially just a more consistent basis, which I think would be quite exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a disservice, but you said it'll be exciting, so I'll take it.
No.
I don't think it's a dis. I think Josh Campbell's
a good player.
Needs more credit than he gets. And Liam essentially, like, if someone said to me, you could have Josh Campbell that's going to play 30 times a season and be as good as Josh Campbell is at his peak, I would absolutely bite your hand off for that. And if Luke Buchanan could be that for Hibs, I would definitely take it.
Yeah, sure.
I do think he's a better footballer. I do think he's a better footballer, and I think I made that kind of quite clear. I just think there are
No,
similarities between the sort of style of the player, and I think the sort of high energy and the fact that, I mean, they're both their goal scoring's an attribute, but they're both good off the ball as well, which is increasingly important in centre midfield, as much as people don't really want to talk about that side of the game as much, particularly if you're in a sort of high pressing side. And I think potentially the new manager might want to come in and do that. Having two players who can do that from sort of more advanced midfield positions will be important.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it. Like I said, I think we're all actually pretty aligned with what we think works in this league, and they would both tick that boxes in terms of their energy and their athleticism. Let's change it up a little bit. I'm going to go first on the striker. I'm enjoying the sound of my own voice here. I think this is one that might get ridiculed here. I'm ready for it. I am going for another ex-Motherwell player, much like Alan Campbell, former teammate. I believe the timelines matched up. He had two spells at Motherwell. I couldn't quite make out if it was interrupted by a loan down south or if it was two separate spells, and that is Devante Cole. Who is out of contract, who is son of Andy Cole, has been at Barnsley this season, was their top goal scorer this year. And look, scores goals and predominantly plays off the right wing, is capable of playing through the middle as well, but if majority of rumours are to be believed, and with Maizani moving on, we have got some work to be doing in the wide positions this summer as well. So he scored 34 goals for Barnes over the last two seasons. I think it was 18 this season. And he's made 102 appearances over the two seasons. So again, robust, 29 years old, experience, and ultimately has the experience of playing in Scotland, where he scored 16 goals in 48 games for Motherwell. It does feel to me a player that's coming into their prime a little bit later in their career. That Motherwell spell, especially his second one, is what sort of kick-started him. And then these 2 years at Barnsley have sort of brought the best out of him. He's actually featured in every league game and playoff game for Barnsley in the last 2 years. So, when you look at being available, that would be a massive tick in his what's the word? In that row, in that box.
Back in his box, yeah. I think if you go back to the Alan Campbell episode that I referenced earlier on when we very first started this, I think I mentioned Devante Cole's name as well in that same episode. He's a player I think we should definitely be having a look at over the summer. Had a really bad first season down there because I remember following, seeing how it was going. He didn't have a good first season down there. He's never really been a prolific scorer of goals until the last couple of seasons where he started to find the net a wee bit more. And with Barnsley not getting promoted, I think it would be
he's out of contract. He has been released.
Potentially one that would consider coming back up here.
Yeah.
Andy Cole was on the overlap actually talking about him. I don't know if you watched that. Aye, so I mean
he was on it at the end actually, wasn't he? He came on.
So I think he's definitely one that we should be tracking. Would he give us the goals that we need from a number 9 if we're only playing one of them? Would maybe be a worry. But
like I say, I think he's done all his business on the right hand side really for Barnsley this year. I think we've got a massive hole incoming with what seems like the imminent departure of Eli Yuan and Malita, obviously already being away, given he was a loan player. I want someone that can score goals in that position. Obviously, Martin Boyle can take up that right wing slot as well, but it again, some people we seem to think that he's maybe on a downward spiral as well in terms of his contributions with age and injuries and stuff. So no, definitely a player that I think Hibs should look at. And I actually see just like that second spell at Motherwell, or that second season, 12 goals, 6 assists, and he's proven that he can do it up here. And that, whereas normally when we're looking at League One, League Two, it's like like Harry McCurdy in League Two, for instance. It gives me that little bit of extra confidence in saying I think he is a player that Hibs could be looking at, because that is ultimately 3 out of 4 seasons, in my opinion, where he's had pretty good to very good goal scoring returns.
So would you expect him to be brought in as a starter? Or do you think that he would be a backup to Venti, or would there be a way that you could potentially play both? Or
think you could,
no, you said he'd play on the wing, didn't you?
I think he predominantly would play out wide, Harry. Yeah, but I think he would be a starter. Look, I think Dylan Vente is a good football player, but he's not done enough this season. I know he was injured at spells and like he's not always had the best run of games and stuff. Like there is obviously mitigating factors, but I think when he's been available, he's not done enough. So I think I don't know if it's right to say we should be looking to upgrade on Venti this season, but we certainly need more options because as it stands, it's him and Harry McCurdy for our striking options anyway. But I think Devante Cole would come in and play. Who would like to go next? Sorry, I forgot that I was also hosting this. So, um, Harry, bring us on with your number 9 or wide option, whatever you have brought to the table.
Cool. So I just want to say, first and foremost, I'm actually disappointed in transfer market because I think they've given me, we should have a klaxon for fake news. I thought this gem, I'm going to talk to you about him anyway. I thought his contract expires as it says on transfer market next month. However, according to a different article I've found since, apparently he's contracted until 2026. However, we're going to go to Slovakia this time, and he's actually Slovakian, currently contracted to MSK Zelina, and he was on loan at Polish side Gornik Zabrze.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Harry, but I was thinking this earlier. You've went awfully exotic for someone that struggles with pronunciations.
Okay, I don't know why I do it to myself. But anyway, his name is Adrian Kapralic, and he's a really exciting 21-year-old forward. Predominantly plays out on the right, but can play across anywhere up the top three. He's a really pacey young player. Got 7 goals and 2 assists in 30 games, which for a 21-year-old I think is a really solid return in the top flight of a decent level in Polish football, and he's a player that's kind of been talked about a lot, from like not really the top leagues of Europe, but kind of that like second tier down as a player that people are kind of keeping a watch for. I think realistically, he's not the type of player that would thrive in a tiki-taka system. So I think if we were playing the system that we played this year, he wouldn't be the best, but he's got the pace to get him behind, and he's good enough with the ball at his feet that you can give it to him and he can take players on. I think he'd be the type of player that could potentially replace Yuan in the sense that I think he'd get everybody on their feet, and I'd be very surprised if he wasn't in and amongst the goals very regularly. The only thing is, if I'm right, if transfer market is correct and he's out of contract next month, and we could somehow get him on a free, I think it would be an absolute steal. But if we did have to pay money and it wasn't like club record fee breaking, I would say it would be definitely worth it because I'd be shocked if we can get a good return on the investment down the line because as for a 21-year-old, he looks very, very good for the level that he's at.
Yeah, and I think all 3 of my players, sorry, no, 2 of my 3 players are out of contract, but I think if there is any credit to go to the club is that they've not been shy of putting their money where their mouth is, especially on the forward players that they've recruited, Dylan Vente, Eliu, and they immediately spring to mind. So just because a player's not under contract, I certainly wouldn't think that would mean they're not unattainable. I wouldn't think. Liam, what do you make of I'm not saying his name.
Adrian Kapralic.
It's difficult to say, really, just based on my limited knowledge of football out there. I mean, I've been to see some games in Poland, and whilst the teams are very well supported, my view would be the standard of football is quite poor. So I'd probably want to see a better goal return from a player that you were going to probably pay quite a significant fee for. I know he's only 21. You'd be hoping he'd grow into the role, but big fee for a 21-year-old who, let's be honest, I mean, it'd be a huge gamble based on the sample size of the time he's been out there. So it would be an interesting one, but it'd be very, very high risk.
Do you not think that I think that 7 goals for a right winger predominantly is a pretty good return, especially for someone being so young? I don't think that you would typically. I know some systems you rely on the wingers to score the goals, but I think in Scottish football you would expect your like number 9 to be your goal scorer.
It's
Doesn't
difficult.
look like he's a right winger though either. Like, it looks like he's played more centrally.
But I think there's context to everything because like you add a couple goals onto that, and you're just like, oh, it's double figures. It's like it is like 7 and 30.
Yeah.
It is still almost 1 and 3 in it. You know what I mean? Like he's got a couple of assists in there. He sort of is averaging a goal contribution 1 in every 3. I agree though. I do think if we were going to put a lot of money into a player, then I would probably want to see a little bit more evidence of it. Would it be a player that maybe you could do an Eliuan type situation where you bring them in on loan and then that's where you make the decision? Because like had we spent the money we had spent on Eliuan last summer, the summer before, we'd have probably questioned it a little bit. He didn't have the record that he is leaving Hibs with ultimately. This has been his best spell of his career.
I think realistically the best Hibs comparison would probably be Melkerson, as in like a young player who's had a pretty good career so far, especially for a youngster with a lot of first team minutes under his belt. But as you touched on, it's definitely a big risk. However, I think just based off what I've read into him clips that I've seen, I do think he looks like a really exciting young player. For me, I know it sounds entirely hypocritical because I was like, we need to get players in their prime age, but I saw this guy and I was like, get me a bit of him. I'm all about it.
Mate, it's all about preference and it's all about just what do we want to see. I've got a striker for you that scores 1 in every 5 in the Norwegian top flight, and that is the Hoff. 2 and 10 goals he scored this season for the team he's joined. But Liam, who's your number 9?
Number 9. So I just want to be very clear. I want the club to sign Rudy Payton this summer, whether he plays through the middle or potentially I think he's mobile enough to play in the wide areas. I don't mind. I'm quite happy. But he is not my suggestion. My suggestion is Reading's, and yes, Reading are a wee bit of a basket case. Reading's Sam Smith, centre forward. I think a lot of you who follow English lower league football will know who he is because he shot the lights out at Cambridge a few years ago, and I think maybe potentially there was maybe talks of him coming up here. Can't remember which club to play for, but I think he's a player who kind of sort of fits that sort of mold of, I suppose, the classic number 9 that plays maybe English sort of League One, English Championship sort of level football. Quite tall, quite rangy, big long strides, but mobile enough that he can play as a lone striker. Has occasionally played in a 2 as well throughout his career, but I think he spent a lot of time playing as a lone striker more latterly. Has done well for Reading, so kind of got his sort of, I suppose, big move, if you like, when he moved from Cambridge United to Reading in a free transfer in the summer. He scored 16 goals in 37 games, but crucially, he scored in every single one of his last 4 games to finish the season. So we would be signing a player who, albeit there'll be a break, is bang in form and knows where the goal is. And I think he, given Reading's current predicament, is probably within reach.
What?
And
On you go, Harry. No, on you go.
no, I was just going to say the player comparison again, and kind of, do you think he could partner with Fenty, or would you think that he'd be playing ahead of him?
I think he'd be playing ahead of him, to be honest, and with how things are. I mean, I think there's quite unlikely Hibs will play a 2 striker system next season, whichever manager comes in, just because very few clubs now play with 2 centre forwards, and the fact that we've talked about signing a 6 and an 8 probably means that there's not really much left in our virtual teams for it either. So I would imagine it'll be a lone striker
3-5-2, baby.
with two wide men off him, looking to find the sort of supply line into him, whether it's cross into the box or into feet. To be honest, I think he looks like the kind of player who would do very well in the Scottish League. I think he's kind of sort of built for sort of big, robust centre halves and would be able to stand up to it without too much difficulty.
Forgive me for my ignorance. Are Reading still absolutely in the shit?
Oh, the saga just goes on. So, their owner and the supporters trust are essentially at war at the moment,
Right.
and they are still in a fair bit of bother. To be honest, I haven't really kept up with it because I don't find it that interesting, but I know it's still rumbling on.
Yeah. I just think like 16 goals, 15 goals in League One would a championship side be looking to pay money that maybe we couldn't match, or even a higher League One side? That's because it was a player that I looked at as well. I'd just like to say Devante Cole, 3 more goals. It'll be in a much better side, to be fair, in a much better side. No, I think it'd be a good signing. It was, like I say, it was one I looked at, but when I look at League One players in England, I generally think, if they're performing well, I think they need to be out of contract for them to be attainable to us. Just because I think whilst we've got investment, I feel like we probably would still be sort of championship sides are going to probably go. But then there's probably not as much money bashing about the English Championship now in ways of transfer fees and stuff as maybe there once was, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. But
I,
yeah,
th- I
no,
think
when I
I think
looked at it,
I think the players are in the spine of the team. I think is where we've got to spend the money. And if we're going to spend the investment, I'd be spending it on centre halves, a centre midfielder, and a striker, and
yeah.
potentially a goalkeeper. You focus your money on that area of the team, and then do all your other additions around the side on other areas on free transfers. I don't think there's anything more other than getting the centre halves that we need. I'd probably argue there's not a more important position in the pitch for us to recruit well in this summer. And we need someone. You look at the teams in the league who've done well. We need someone who's going to come in and get a minimum of 15 league goals this season. If we're going to compete at the top end of the table.
Yeah. I do totally agree there. I do totally agree. Was there any players for either of you that you had a look at that you wanted to mention, but they just sort of lost out? So for me, someone I didn't even really look into, but I thought straight away I seen it and I went, he's out of contract. Lafondra replacement, 15 goals in League One last season. Jordan Rhodes. I was like,
Mm.
that's that, and that was one that I thought maybe just you see it and you go, oh fuck, he's still playing football. Like Jesus, oh, he scored quite a lot of goals. Oh, he's out of contract. Oh, he could do a job. Like that was sort of as my day progressed. Was there any other players that you guys looked at?
We've mentioned it before, but obviously Giando Fuchs, I believe, is a free agent. So if he was available, would definitely be knocking that door. Um, there's a few players in League One that I thought looked good, but I just think the fee would be too high. Like Dion Charles, I think his name is, the boy at Bolton.
No chance.
Yeah, no, as I say, I think he's a good player and I think he'd do good up here. But I just think financially, as you touched on, and if he's not low on contract, I think that's a good thing about a Reading player, as we could potentially take advantage of that situation.
Mhm.
And yeah, I saw a bunch of other fun names across Europe that I'm not going to mispronounce their names that seemed fun. There was a boy for Voldenham or Voldenham, I think, so a Dutch team that
Volendam.
just got relegated. Their midfielder Twite seemed like an absolute baller. So look him up, Twight. Twite. What a boy.
Love that Harry's just created a Harry Potter style football club, FC Voldemort, I think is what he was sitting out with there. The only one I didn't mention that I had on my list, and I've mentioned Drury Payton now, so I've got that out of the way, is Charlie Savage, who's another Reading player who obviously been at Man United, had played quite a few times for the sort of team in pre-seasons of the past. He is the son of Robbie Savage, so there would be that downside, is that you'd have to potentially put up with Robbie Savage making a pilgrimage up here every now and again to watch him. But sort of a all-action centre midfielder, I think, kind of again quite versatile. Can play as an 8, can play as a 6. Quite wee in stature, good on the ball. Again, it would be looking to take advantage of Reading's position. I think he potentially might have offers in the Championship though in the summer.
He's made a debut for Wales as well, has he? I think. Have I made?
Well, you could go in all Wales midfield. You could sign Will Vaulks, Dylan Levitt, and Charlie Savage, and just have like the Wales midfield of the future just run out for us.
And
Couple
technically,
players.
well, I know he's not Welsh, but Mariah Welsh, so you can claim him in that midfield as well.
Nicely done, Harry. A couple of players that I had a wee look at. As I say, I was talked into Luke McCowan to talk about him, you guys. So the player I had as my alternate was Scotland under-21 international. Now I think I'm about to butcher his surname here. Lewis Fiorini. This looks all right. Man
Yeah,
City Academy prospect, still at the club. He's had two pretty not great loan spells with Blackpool and Charlton. Kind of injury hit, to be fair to him. He had a surgery in the sort of this time last year, to sort of get ready, but it's not really happened for him at all in the last 2 years after two very successful excuse me, two very successful loan spells at NEC Breda and Lincoln City. 22 years of age. I think it could be time for him to find somewhere and put his stamp somewhere, because obviously he's not gonna go on and have a career at Man City. And just two sort of iffy spells in with Blackpool and Charlton. Maybe he sees that the Scottish game could be somewhere for him if he's back in the Scottish under-21 team that's playing next week, so he's obviously fit again. Just thought, a younger age profile than the players that we spoke about. Thought that would
Only
be
we had some of my City Group connections to get him in, eh?
I could see that on the tip of your tongue there, desperate to
Oh,
get
God.
it. And
Just to say, sorry for interrupting there, but I've done some scouting on behalf of Liam after the centre back episodes, and I've seen that Stephen Humphreys is available on a free, and then also Josh Dinelli, I think's done quite well down south. So if you wanted to bring either of them in, I'm sure Liam would. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Just one other player. It was actually another Scotland under-21 international that I thought maybe what you were saying earlier about putting all our money into the middle of the team. Kieran Bowie is a right winger. Came through at Rafe. He's currently part of Fulham's setup. He's spent the last 2 years on loan at Northampton. He's got 3 and 5 for the Scotland under-21s in their qualifying campaign and has scored 10 goals in League One for them this season. I might be wrong. I would consider Hibs a massive step up in his development. And I think we've seen some success, to be fair, with I was thinking like a CG Egan Riley coming in from a Premier League club on loan. I think we are seeing that more. It's obviously not one that would get you up and out your seat and get the season tickets through the door, but a player for me that I thought could be a good addition.
He did start his career at Glenrothes Strollers as well, which I'll be honest, when I saw it the first time, I was like, that's got to be a walk-in football club, isn't it? But no, it's actually a serious community football club. Never heard of Glenrothes Strollers, but now I have.
Right,
So
that's what we have went with, and that is all you're getting from us, unless you have any more, my friends. So, as we said earlier, we will be back when Hibs have done something. Ultimately, we are not going to sit here and talk shite about nothing, like we normally do for the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, it is sooner rather than later, though. So, for the meantime, enjoy your next couple of weeks, and we will be back soon. Cheers.
Bye.